What's up, everyone? Welcome into DodgerHeads, presented by DodgerBlue.com, part of the Blue Wire Podcast Network. My name is Jeff Spiegel, joined today by AJ Gonzalez. AJ, it's trade deadline day, and I think there's a little bit of anxiety in Los Angeles. My advice, AJ, to everybody is just take a deep breath. All right, we've got a few more hours until the trade deadline. No need to panic until 3 p.m. West Coast has come and gone. You agree with me?
Yeah, entirely. Because otherwise, you're going to waste your whole day.
Yeah, exactly. Well, here's the plan for this morning. We're going to make some predictions. I've got a prediction on a trade. AJ's got a prediction on a trade. And then we pulled some of our folks on Twitter for some of the best ideas they had for trades. We're going to rattle through this. It's worth noting up front, please, please, please join us today at 2 p.m. on the Dodger Blue YouTube page right here. Subscribe and ring the notification bell. At 2 p.m., we're going live to break down the entire trade deadline leading up to the actual deadline itself. And then we're going to stick around for 30 minutes afterwards. We're going to have Justin Lorber, our prospects guy, joining us, a bunch of folks from across the Dodger Blue team. So please set a reminder on your calendar to have us on. Even if it's in the background, we're going to be here live starting at 2 o'clock for about an hour and a half. It's going to be a great one. But AJ, let's dive in. Let me start with just a question. Do you think the Dodgers make a trade today? Or do you think we get to the end of the day and this is a disappointment? Just before we get into specifics of what you would like them to do you think the Dodgers make a trade today?
I think it's 60-40 that they don't.
Okay, so you're saying more likely they don't make a trade, which at this point, the way prices are being talked about, the number of teams that are buying, I don't think that's unrealistic. And when I say make a trade, I mean, I think they're going to make a trade. Like, is it going to be an impact trade on the level that people want it to be? That's the question. So let's get into it. Your trade has the Dodgers going after Mitch Keller from the Pittsburgh Pirates. You've got Tony Gonsolin, Michael Busch, and Ryan Pepio going to Pittsburgh. So walk me through the decision to make a move for Keller here, if in AJ's world, and do you think this is enough to get the deal done?
I think it's pretty close to get the deal done. I know that Pittsburgh, at least in whispers, is notoriously pretty high in their asking prices when you're taking their players off of their hands. But I think that it's a fair asking price. You're talking about Bush, who's done nothing but rake.
Yeah.
Tony Gonsolin, who's an all-star. He was in the Cy Young conversation last year. Obviously has had a bumpy road the last few months, but has plus stuff. Could be your number one guy. Would be the Pirates' number one guy in their rotation right now. And Ryan Pepio, who has the filthiest changeup I've seen from a Dodger in a long time. Obviously, the injury concern, his biggest issue is his control, but nothing that's not a player that I would take a chance on if I were a front level office executive. So I think, and the reason I'm pushing this is because a guy like Keller has team control through 2025. So you're not even just trying to, this wouldn't be just a save 2023 trade, give up 3 big pieces. You're talking about a guy who could go to the Mark Pryor lab and be a big piece for the Dodgers for the next 2.5 seasons.
Yeah.
And then some if they retain him and he ends up being good. So I don't think that, normally I think most of us are not big on the make a big splashy trade just because we are panicking.
Yeah.
I think that this qualifies as both. It's a big splashy trade, and you're getting a guy who potentially could be a top guy in your rotation. He hasn't pitched quite as well as I think he probably normally would this season, but sometimes being on a bad team will do that to you.
Yeah, I'm with you. Like, Keller is the guy that of all the names that have been mentioned that I would be most interested in. I think this would just come down to like how much they value Tony Gonsolin. You've got Michael Busch, who's like a top 50-ish prospect, so that's a nice piece. Gonsolin and Pepio, I think, are the wild cards. Pepio was/is a top 100 prospect in some places. Gonsolin, as you mentioned, is an all-star last year, but has struggled. Some of the underlying metrics don't love Gonsolin. So I think you're kind of trying to get away with Gonsolin in place of like an Emmett Sheehan type player here. Could you make this trade without Diego Cartaya or Dalton Rushing being included? I think that's the tricky part. If the Pirates, believe in Gonsolin's upside and believe in Pepio's upside, I think this is the ballpark. I think it's probably a little light. This is probably fair. This is where we get into, this is probably a fair trade, but in today's market on trade deadline day, you don't make fair trades. You make trades where you're ending up having to pay 150 cents on the dollar. This is probably 100 cents on the dollar. if you like Gonsolin and Pepio. But I do like the idea of going out and getting Keller. My prediction is Gavin Stone and Jose Ramos for Justin Verlander and cash. We talked a bit about this last night on our show, AJ. You weren't on there. To me, Emmett Sheehan's a non-starter. I'm not interested in moving Emmett Sheehan, Bobby Miller, Diego Cartaya, or Dalton Rushing. You ask for those 4 players in a Justin Verlander trade, and I'm just not doing it. He has $78 million potentially left on his contract after this season, in addition to, the remaining of the $43 million he's owed this year. He's going to be 41 before next season begins. I know he has been elite. He's been really good. He's also missed basically 2 full seasons in the past 3 or 4. So I like Justin Verlander. I think he can help them. I just don't like the contract. I don't like his age, and not to mention any of the clubhouse stuff. So for me, I wouldn't go higher than Gavin Stone. I wonder if this gets to a place today where Gavin Stone is maybe the best option on the table. For you, is Emmett Sheehan? Where are you at on Sheehan? Like, I think we all agree Miller's off the table. Cartaya's off the table. Rushing is off the table in a conversation for a guy like Verlander. Would you make a move for Emmett Sheehan? Because the prediction that I've got next is from Nicholas Byer on Twitter, and he's got the exact same trade except for Sheehan in for Gavin Stone. So would you make this trade? Would you do Sheehan and Ramos for Verlander and cash?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
You're talking about a bloated contract. You're talking about a guy who's going to be 41, you said, next year.
Yeah.
And look, he's been good. I'm not questioning that he hasn't been good. But father time comes for everyone.
Yeah.
And so does that paycheck. And if the Dodgers really are on the backing up the Brinks truck for Ohtani trade next year, that does complicate things. And on top of that, the Dodgers are also going to have to take on money for his AARP payments. So I'm totally with you. Miller, Sheehan, Dalton Rushing, those top 3 guys, I just don't put them on the table for Verlander. It's too much to give up for way too much unpredictability for a short amount of time with a lot of money on the table.
Yeah, if I'm moving Sheehan, it can't be for Justin Verlander. It's got to be for Killer. It's got to be for Dylan Cease. It's got to be for a guy that's got some team control beyond this year. Let's get to a few more predictions. Again, thanks to folks on Twitter for hopping in here. I'm not going to say all these names, but another prediction here. We've got Landon Knack, River Ryan, and Jose Ramos. Poor Jose Ramos just getting thrown into. He's in another one of these too. So poor guy's in 4 predictions on our show today. But Knack, Ryan, and Ramos for Eduardo Rodriguez. Again, I look at this and unfortunately, I just don't think this is going to be enough. I think Rodriguez technically could be under team control for 3 more years. I believe he's got $50 million left. I think he's going to opt out based on the season he's having right now. I think he can make more money on the market. So really, the Dodgers think they're paying for a rental. The Tigers think they're selling a guy who's got 3 more years of team control at a pretty solid number. In that case, I just don't think you can get Rodriguez with Knack or Ryan being the top piece here. I think there's got to be either Michael Busch, if they're interested in Michael Busch, and then, one of the second tier of pitching prospects the Dodgers have. But my initial reaction to this, AJ, is I'd rather have Eduardo Rodriguez than Justin Verlander, which is a hot take. Not because I think Rodriguez is better necessarily, but because of all the other stuff that comes with Verlander, i.e. his age, his contract, all that kind of thing. So I would prefer Rodriguez for 1 year, and if he sticks around, then I don't hate the number. And if he doesn't stick around, then, it is what it is. But I don't think this is enough for Rodriguez is the bottom line. Do you agree?
I agree with that part, and I agree with, for some reason, this is how baseball can change in a few months' time. I'm taking Rodriguez over Verlander, and a lot of it has to do with age.
Yeah.
I was looking at his numbers before we hopped on here, and even in the years where he struggled, his value, at least per the metrics, per very simple metrics, ERA plus and FIP, he's been better than I think people realize. Maybe guys like us who play fantasy baseball gotten burned by him a little bit more than others, but he's having a career year on a god-awful team. Yeah. So I think you're right. I think Knack, Ryan plus Ramos may not be enough for Detroit to pull the trigger on that, or maybe they're enamored with one of those guys. Like I know, you mentioned to Ramos for being in all these trades, but hey, at least that means he's got value if everyone's talking about him being traded.
There you go. There you go. Yeah, we're going to get crushed. I know the Verlander people are going to think we're crazy, but at least we're not alone, AJ. We got two more on here. The next prediction, this is from Infinite Dodgers. I like this as a tweak here. Emmett Sheehan, Landon Knack, and Justin Brule for Verlander and Pham and cash. So we're basically taking the Sheehan for Verlander move, and we're parlaying Knack and Brule for Pham as well. I still don't love this trade personally, but I think Knack for Pham at least kind of sucks up a little bit of the overpay that Sheehan for Verlander is in my mind. So I still wouldn't love this, but I think it's an interesting trade, and I appreciate the submission.
Value wise, as far as pure player to player comparisons, it's probably pretty close.
Yeah.
It's a little better than some of the other ones that have been floated for just Verlander. But I'm already swallowing a lot of pride by just allowing Justin Verlander to come to the Dodgers if I'm in the front office. Two guys who, and look, Tommy Pham's having a great year, and I'm sure that some of the negative things that have been said about him are overblown. They usually are. But you are talking about a guy with kind of a weird reputation in the clubhouse. And you're talking about a guy who was on the 2017 Astros, even if he never picked up a bat. I don't know. I could see Andrew Friedman and company doing this. I don't know how well received this would be by like the Dodger fans at Dodger Stadium. Maybe, nerds like us who are doing this and guys who are floating these trades, like it does make sense. But to the average Dodger fan, I think that might be a tough pill to swallow.
Yeah, I mean, look, every time an Astro comes to town, they are not met with positive response. Let's get to one last one, and this one is not a prediction. It's more of a wish. Kevin says, Michael Busch, Gavin Stone, Ryan Pepio, and our friend Jose Ramos again for Dylan Cease. So Stone, Busch, Pepio, Ramos for Cease. I would love this trade, personally. And again, so much of this is hard to predict because Gavin Stone was a top 40 or 50 prospect coming into the year. Michael Busch still is. Pepio used top 100 guy. So on the surface, really quickly here, I know you like Cease, so I imagine you would call this one in as quickly as you could.
Yeah, I mean, it is a lot. With especially with Stone and Pepio, two guys who I know haven't been the greatest for us on the field, but I think everyone remembers to keep in mind that they were still in development, especially Stone. And Ramos has been good for as much as we've kind of joked about how it's sad that he's in all these trade rumors. And I don't know what's going on with Busch and the Dodgers, but that guy just freaking rakes.
Yeah.
So I think it's a fair trade package for a guy who's been historically good. He's a little less, his numbers are a little down this season, but again, that's part of being on a bad team. But I think as far as pure fairness between the Dodgers and the White Sox, it's a fair trade. And I would take it, especially because of the team control.
Yep. Cease and Keller would be the two guys that I would be most interested in. It's interesting that you and I are both aligned on not being huge Justin Verlander fans, although I'll say it again, I still think that's what ends up happening. I think they end up trading for Justin Verlander. I'm just hoping that they don't have to part with Emmett Sheehan in the process. That's AJ Gonzalez. I'm Jeff Spiegel. Again, please join us today for our trade deadline special at 2 p.m. West Coast. We'd love to have you engaging with us as we break down whatever happens this morning and whatever happens in real time as we approach the deadline. You can follow us on Twitter at AJ on the Guitar, at Jeff Spiegel, and of course at DodgerBlue1958 on social media. Everywhere. If you're a podcast person, search for DodgerHeads on Apple, Spotify, and Google. We are part of the Blue Wire Podcast Network, and we'd love to engage with you there as well. Enjoy the rest of your trade deadline. Take some deep breaths, and as always, go Dodgers.
Go Dodgers.